Welcome, everyone.
Welcome to TAIBU Takes On Taboos.
Where this episode, we're focusing on mental health.
Is mental health something you think people can control?
I think that's asking, like, can you let the rain fall? Absolutely not. That's way out of someone's control. There are so much things that contribute to mental illness, like genetics, your environment, the community, the support that you have. All of that comes into play. So no one can
Yeah, I
control
think
that.
a lot of people think that you can control it. And I think that's where a lot of people get a lot of stigma. And they're like, oh, well, they just stop thinking that way.
Yeah.
Which is maddening.
And I think that just brings more shame. Like,
Yes.
if you want to address your mental health, you don't have the space or the safe space to address the mental health, because people will think that, oh, you're just not strong enough and you're weak, so you can't you can't take care of your
It's
own
the
mental
mind
health.
taking over the body.
Absolutely.
It's not fun.
Not at all.
As black men, do you think we are covert about mental health?
Yeah, that's a very heavy and deep question. Just because as a black man, you kind of want to meet a certain standard that society expects you to be and stuff like that. And that doesn't really align with kind of mental health issues or mental health concerns. You want to look out for your family members, you want to look out for people in your community, you got to go to work, so many different things you got to do, so many different aspects of life you got to juggle. And mental health struggles really, it doesn't align with that. So I can see, white people, especially black men, would be covert surrounding mental health.
I agree with that. And also, what I hear in that question is there a choice if you're mentally ill?
Yeah.
Right? And it's almost like, we don't want to go there because, it's a choice. And we know a lot more scientifically that there's so many reasons that people can be out of balance and have symptoms of mental illness.
Of course.
From my experience in working with TCCS, I see a lot more black male bodies on the street showing symptoms of mental illness.
Yeah.
And then when you do the system navigation and we're looking for black male specific services, they're very underserved. Or there's a lot of resistance when you're having a conversation about mental wellness and people are experiencing these symptoms but don't want to talk about it. So it's so important to really kind of address the stigma.
Yeah.
And it's not about weakness, right? Mental illness isn't you're weak and this is a them problem, not a us problem as a community. It is really, there's so many mitigating factors of why somebody can be out of balance and not experiencing a level of equanimity, which interferes with our daily activities, right? And I think the big piece is it's not about which male or female, it's about what is our society not meeting that we are reacting to that creates that out of balance, right? And if we could just kind of lean in that way and say, what need wasn't met? And now you're adapting to that unmet need, right? So instead of taking the onus off of black men and looking at what our history and how there's been so much inequity that you can't help but think that that's not going to impact your mental health, right? So kind of flipping the script a little bit when I work with black males in the community and saying, you know what, instead of this is a black male problem or denying it, what need wasn't met that you've had to adapt that's created an imbalance for you, right? And then how can we address that and navigate the system so we can get that need met? And that comes with a lot of advocacy because we know embedded in the system, there isn't such a thing as equity right now. We talk about equity and we talk about, but it's still hard for Black bodies to get their needs met. It has been a challenge for a long, long time, and we're making movements. There's a lot more awareness. So just to bring that up, and like, this is not just a you thing. This is about a system that we see really clearly that is out of balance. So let's see how we can get those needs met and uplift by those community supports. And you guys did a beautiful job talking about those community supports, right? How family is so important, but when the root of it is we can't bring it up to family, then we see a lot of people running away. And I've seen a lot of Black male bodies struggling with their mental illness, homeless, and isolated. That is a problem, right?
Of course.
That's a
huge
problem. And when we don't have the kind of services and supports available to them, it gets harder and harder for them to manage, right? So that's a big question, right? And it's there's some really simple solutions to some very big problems, right? And that is looking at people with equity and inclusion and from the science and evidence-based resources that we have and data that we have, and saying, okay, there seems to be a whole lot of Black men out there struggling with adapting to the environment and conditions that's knocked them out of balance. What can our systems do to respond?
What do you see in your respective roles that gives you hope for the future of mental health discourse?
What trends am I seeing that gives me hope in the discourse in mental health? People are starting to get very clear that the food we eat impacts how we feel and how our organic machine operates. That gives me a lot of hope, because we really, really need to pay attention to what we put in creates a result. I think that gives me tremendous hope. What also gives me hope is many diverse communities are starting to have really important conversations about community. That gives me a lot of hope. And we're shifting, although we have a lot of work to do, we're starting to see the benefits of coming together and seeing our similarities, what's important to our family life, our survival, our earth and our communities. We all want the same things. I mean, we may not all want the same things, but many of us want the same things, and that's health, wellness, happiness, and that gives me a lot of hope.
It's so beautiful.
It's the truth. I mean, it takes us up against the wall to kind of get there. Well, so be it. We're having those conversations, and we're having them all over the world. And we're not hearing a whole lot about it. And that's why it's so important that we dig deep and we find information and not just take things at face value. And people are doing that. They're utilizing these resources and having really interesting conversations on a community level, where before there was no conversation at all. That's higher than hope. What do you think?
I think I absolutely agree. For me, the conversations and then actually seeing how the resources get developed, even just something like the Toronto Community Crisis Service team that we're both on here at TAIBU, like, you know, growing up, you know, you have these presentations and you hear about, okay, if there's fire, call 911, or if there's a crime, you know, call police. And for so long, like, oh yeah, if there's a crime or if there's somebody having a mental health crisis, call police. And then now, like the fact that even just an innovation like the Toronto Community Crisis Service was able to be built after like years and years and years and years of advocacy. And we're definitely not the only non-police led crisis team on the earth, but are we the first one ever in Toronto?
Yes. I mean, on a municipal,
that's been,
municipal
but yeah,
level,
like
yes,
even just
yes.
the like trying to remember that and like whoa, like in Toronto right now, there is non-police led mental health crisis support for anyone experiencing a mental health crisis or anybody that wants like a wellness check on a loved one. And all they have to do is call 211, and our team of like lovely crisis workers that are like trained and qualified will hop in the van and meet them wherever they're at, on a street corner, at a mall, at a university dorm room. Like, I look at the data, like the team goes everywhere.
Absolutely.
Like they will
Absolutely.
like hop over like
Fences.
just like literally, and even
Literally.
even sometimes the descriptions that come in, and I'm like, and the team finds that person that needs support, whether it's
Above and beyond.
whether it's a university student with suicidal ideation or somebody in active psychosis on the subway.
Yeah.
And then support is provided, and I'm like, yeah, just remembering like every day how big of an innovation that is. It's like we have made progress. Like, it can be so hard to be like, oh, like things aren't where they should be, and there's always like more room to grow and to advance. But that's like, you know, the gift we have as humans is to get to, you know, enjoy this beautiful life and then make it better.
And make it better.
And it's so cool that
Progress, yes.
there are
definitely.
conversations happening, that there are resources being developed and sustained, and like
Yeah, and I think
we're on the right path.
we are on the right
We're
path.
on
and
the right path.
that's
and that gives
civilian-led,
me
right?
hope. That gives me hope.
That gives you hope. And I love that piece you're talking about, that civilian-led piece, like people connecting to people, people helping people, and the fourth essential service, and all of the data that was compiled from other systems, like the medical system, who started, you know, having crisis teams go out and work with different marginalized populations, and then, you know, and then here we are right across, you know, the city of Toronto, and like you said, it's hope, it's movement, where before there wasn't a whole lot of movement around mental health and responding from a community lens to mental health. Now the community is responding, and that's very, very hopeful, right? Very, very hopeful. And even, you know, TAIBU is responding as a, you know, a community support, talking about and having workshops and services directly responding to the complications that come to the lack of service in our community. That's hopeful, right? As you know, a couple of years ago, that was really not a priority from the top down, but now it's a priority, and that's hopeful.
How do you think men and women experience the effects of mental health differently?
That's a loaded question right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well I mean, we know that there's certain hormonal and biological differences between male bodies and female bodies, so we get that piece. But I mean, we are assigned roles,
Of course,
right?
yeah.
And often those roles don't actually have anything to do with how we want to experience ourselves.
Exactly.
Right? So, I mean, I think there's a lot more going on in our society, that women are sort of the emotional stabilizers of men. And I think that many women are now looking at that like, that's a lot of work. I have so many other responsibilities. I can't actually show up and stabilize your emotion and look after the kids and have my 2 jobs and do all these things. So I think it does show up differently as we look at, you know, social prescribing and the social determinants of health. All those factors kind of play in. But what we really like to say is that when you're out of balance mentally, there's so many factors going in that affect both males and females. And from my perspective, it's about holding space and having those difficult conversations about what roles have been assigned, right?
Course, yeah.
And how can we develop a healthy space so we thrive,
Yeah, of course.
right? And that's kind of in well-being, right?
Of
What do you
course, yeah.
think?
I think you've brought up a lot of great points here, Mia.
Yeah.
I think in regards to, it's a lot of it is based kind of on, like you said, gender roles and kind of what's assigned to us and like how like what's assigned to us like in particular due to our gender. It may not be what's best for us and may not be what we want for life. And when you kind of have a difference between kind of what you want or where you want to strive to be and what you're told to be, and there's a huge gap between that, that's kind of where, you know, like thoughts can come in, like things like, okay, this is what I'm told, but this is what I want. Like kind of you thinking like, okay, like what's the issue? Like why don't I want what I'm told to want and I want something different? So that these things are like can impact and play on your mental health.
Yeah, and it's, I think what I'm hearing you say is that it's really about showing up and having honest dialogue
Of course, yeah.
about what's appropriate and inappropriate today.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, exactly.
what conditions are we facing as a family, as a group, as a community, as males, as females, and kind of pulling that apart, taking some space and kind of zooming out a little bit, right? And saying what is appropriate and inappropriate today, because right now a lot of people are just in survival mode and we're not talking about that, let alone gender and roles and this or that. It's about how can we afford to be here on this planet and have for ourselves and our families and our community. So zooming out a little bit gives us a little space to kind of look at what's appropriate and inappropriate, because there's very different conditions assigned to men and to women. And it can create conflict.
It can. Yeah.
And especially when it comes to youth, because they're not buying it anymore. All right? Youth want to experience, I want to over here and experience that right now. Doesn't mean it doesn't have to challenge your sexuality. It's just, I would like to experience what that's like. And I think that, you know, the women are starting to ask more, a lot more of men, because they need more, right? Then, and they don't want fatherless children. They want men to show up. Maybe the relationship's not working, but your child is still your child, right? And those are difficult. Our systems were designed to separate Black families. And if we don't have these conversations to pull people back, we're going to continue to be bumped around by the system.
If you or someone you know needs urgent, in-person or over-the-phone mental health supports in Scarborough, call 211 anytime to reach TAIBU's Toronto Community Crisis Services. Have a question you want us to react to in a future episode? Drop a comment or reach out to us at info@taibuchc.ca if you prefer to reach us anonymously. Share this video and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, see you at another TAIBU Takes On Taboo. See ya.